Welcome to the next episode of EdTalks podcast, where we explore the world of innovations in the field of learning and development. I'm your host, Inna Horvath, a learning strategist at Eli, and today we are diving into a topic that's reshaping technical enablement. Joining us today are two incredible guests, Eric McArdle, L&D leader, and Miguel Ángel Sánchez Moreno, technical enablement lead, both at Cisco Systems. This episode is packed with actionable insights on building scalable programs, nurturing SME ecosystems, customizing enablement across teams, and preparing for future technologies. So let's get started. Hi, Eric and Miguel.
Hello.
Very excited to be here.
Same.
Yeah, I'm sure that this is going to be a super interesting episode. We have never had an episode like this devoted to fully technical enablement. That's why I'm so excited about this. And we always start from rapid fire questions. However, I think just to understand the context of today's episode, it will be quite useful to hear from you the introductions. So what takes you busy these days? What are your initiatives? And yeah, so how did you find yourself in the world of L&D?
Yeah, so I'll start.
Yes, sir.
I like to call myself a learning development leader, right? And a professional, an architect, as well as a program manager. So I started in L&D about, let's say a decade, because that sounds good, but probably around 9.5 years.
Okay.
And I came with, no formal training. It was more of just, I naturally took to helping others, and I really enjoyed it. I think a lot of times when you train others, you learn a lot about yourself. So currently, when it comes to initiatives, we handle a lot of them. We handle them at our entire organization base. We work in the Technical Assistance Center, also known as Cisco TAC. And then I also work in knowledge base. So we do a little bit of that part as well. And then we have AI innovation automation, which Miguel is a pro at.
Yeah.
And then also just, your standard technical training, as we're talking about building scalable technical training programs, and also talent agility.
Yeah, I would say we handle like what people normally understand as technical training, like for new hires. We also build those for more experienced engineers. And then we have some other types of initiatives that we run, maybe even for migrations of tools, integrations. We also now are starting to, probably we'll talk more about that later, but we are starting now with AI enablement or an applied AI space, and we will define those and talk about those more a bit later. But for me, I work in Eric's team, so we work together in the same team. We just split some of the things that we handle. And I started, I would say, around 3-4 years ago. I probably like more the innovation side of things. I like constant change, and I like to work on those new things that hopefully will help our team to be in new spaces, like it could be AI or any new technology. And in general, I would say, and as you asked as well, I started more coming in Finland. I did there my master's in industrial engineering, and I did kind of discover a new way of teaching or learning. And I saw how that was so effective for me, and how that impacted me. So when I came to Cisco, I started actually as an engineer, as Eric did as well, to bring some of those ideas or improvements to the training team in our case. So that is how I think we started. But it was around 3-4 years ago.
Sounds great. And I can't wait to dive deeper in these topics that you mentioned. However, we do have to keep our agenda. And the next one is rapid fire questions. So the same set of questions that we ask every guest of ours and summarize by the end of the season. Firstly, what book or resource can you recommend on L&D or educational topic? Eric, would you start with that?
So this is a book geared towards academia. It's a large textbook, right? If you drop it on your table, you might knock over your mug of coffee. But Strategic Training and Development by Robin Berkeley and David Kaplan. I think, again, I don't have the formal training, but this is a book that's 450 or so pages of just everything you need to know to reference. It's very dry, like most academic textbooks are, so maybe you can toss it into Notebook LM, generate a podcast and have it be a little more fun to, listen to. But I would definitely recommend that for any learning and development professional.
Yeah.
That's the first advice that we've heard in this podcast, to just drop the book into Notebook LM, but I love it. Yeah. Miguel, what's your advice?
Yeah, mine, it's a book that is called Bringing Neuroscience to Online Teaching. It's from Tracy Tukohama Espinosa. This is a professor I had recently in the graduate certificate I'm completing now for learning technology and design. And I would say, Inna, we are coming from our technical backgrounds, we were engineers. So when you don't have this type of formal education into L&D and you don't really know what is going on at the beginning when you start in this new field, I think knowing about this formal side of how almost the brain works and how those principles of neuroscience could help you to just make learning more effective and to help your learners learn again or more or better. I think while reading that book, I was thinking all the time, I wish I knew this before, or I wish we applied some of this stuff to our initiatives before. So I think that neuroscience book from my professor, I think it's probably the one I would recommend to someone also coming into the space.
Brilliant. Thank you for recommendations. Next one, who do you recommend to follow and invite to this podcast from L&D educational experts?
I think I can go. I follow, probably you know Inna in EMEA. Their newsletter is probably quite known. Is Lavinia from Offbeat.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, perfect.
She's
So
brilliant.
I think I have been following her and her team during some time, and they provide quite a lot of insights and things to reflect about, and in general that keeps you kind of up to date with what is going on in the L&D space. So probably that would be my person and the company also Offbeat. I think they are amazing. So that would be my recommendation. What about you?
Mine, I guess it may be biased because I was on a podcast with these two people and I thought they shared great insights. They're both directors in the learning and development space, but Thomas Fenstermacher and Dr. Sydney Savion. I think those are two people that are great to really just pick their brain and see how they approach learning and development. They're both directors in their own space, but those would be the two names, and you probably find them on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for those of you who are listening us live, after the episode is released, we are going to mention all the links and leave the QR codes for everyone mentioned today. Next question is, could you share memorable failure or a setback in your L&D journey, and how did you overcome that?
Okay, you go for this one.
Okay, yeah. So failures and setbacks are great, right? Because you can either, sit there and be hard on yourself, or you can learn from them. Hopefully it's the latter. You want to learn from them. Okay. So I came into WebEx as a technical trainer. I was a technical trainer for tier 2 engineers. So they're not entry level, right? They have several years experience. And I taught them a topic. It was a very complex topic. It took me 2 days, 4 hours each day. Okay, so 8 hours total for them to grasp the topic. So I had one of my stakeholders from the tier 1, the more entry level, reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like you to teach my team that topic. And I said, great. Yeah, I mean, it's very complex. They're like, you have an hour and a half. So I made the mistake of accepting that and saying, okay, let's do this. I taught it very fast. My feedback on my surveys between 1 and 5, 1 being lowest, 5 being the highest, I got a 1.8. My verbatims were very bad. That basically they didn't understand it. I went too fast, so it was expected. So definitely a failure. And I looked at that, and I really, as every L&D professional should know, one size does not fit all. So I sat there, and also you need to be the authority. You need to be the one to provide the guidance to say, hey, this is not going to work and this is why. So it really taught me more how to manage my stakeholders a bit better and really provide that guidance and let them know, where things may not work, where they will, and being confident and, giving them.
I think that most of the L&D specialists can relate to this experience, especially when you're in the beginning of your career and you're really, you need to prove something, you need to get more experience, and you're not willing to say no just because they might not come back to you with another request. So that's a really great example. Yeah, Miguel, what's on your example?
On my side, just to provide a little bit of context, when I joined the team around, as I said, like 3-4 years ago, we were a full live delivery team. So we were operating mostly by delivering live trainings. And when I started, I think it was me telling Eric, I have this idea, so I think it would be great to maybe start working on some e-learning, some self-paced options for our engineers. And I think one of the first things I was trying to, I would say, build this type of community of SMEs or really technical people working around me, and for just not us to be kind of the central part of how we build learning experiences, but also for us to be working or collaborating with a lot of people around us. And I think probably the first huge challenge that I found was that when I was asking something for them to maybe develop, it was like I was probably having something in mind that they could provide, and that was so far from what I actually found that they were providing. And I think that probably lack of clarity in our request and how we were not really providing that guidance. And I think you mentioned that as well, that we need to somehow be able to articulate well what we want, and also to maybe provide some type of templates, methodologies that we develop internally now. So I think after a couple of years, we really realized that we really need to provide those type of guidance or docs or things that would guide them to really develop things in a more structured way. And probably templates plus methodology is the way that kind of we solve in some way that those failures. Probably, yeah, one of the biggest learnings as well on how to work with SMEs and with technical people, because we had that kind of background in mind that of how we wanted things, but you need to actually go and really be clear about what you want.
Yeah, and that's something that we will discuss a little bit later, right? The working with SMEs and your approach to that. But for now, next question is, what question must be asked on a job interview for L&D specialist?
So you're going to see me say this a lot about strategic alignment and how it's so important being in the learning development space. One of the questions I love to ask is, can you share an example of how you connected or linked learning outcomes to business outcomes? Because ultimately us, at the heart of what we do, we want the learner to love what we're doing, but we need to speak to the business, right? You're not just an L&D professional. You have to have business acumen in order to get your seat at the table. So I love to talk about or ask those questions of, when you approach even your needs assessment, your whole design, how do you align those to your, the strategic goals of your organization and the objectives of your company?
Yeah, and I would just linking with what Eric said, probably also at the beginning when we started, we were missing a little bit of that business alignment. So that has been also one of our learnings as going through this, let's say, revamp of how we work and also how we work with other people around our business. And I would add to that, yes, that I normally like to ask, how do you measure effectiveness, or tell me an example of how you do that in one of your learning or trainings, etc. I think you really see how that person is approaching that challenge that we have been having since we started. So I think it's a good way to just probably even have a discussion and really start seeing how that person is developing the same that we have tried to solve on our side. So that way we probably see if that person is a good addition to our team or not. So I think it's a good way to test in an interview.
Yeah, sounds great. Lastly, if you had to give just one piece of advice for someone who is starting their career in L&D, what would that be?
I think I would think, and linking with what Eric said before, I think don't forget about the business, because it's probably the biggest part of the whole thing. If we are not really aligning to, in our analysis now in ADDIE, and I think it's something we probably tend to do, we try to forget about the two extremes of ADDIE, about analysis and evaluation at the end. And I think in analysis, we really try to make sure that we are solving a business problem, not just a problem that we imagine that engineers would have, but really something that it's really making sense for the organization that we work for. So I think don't forget about the business. And then from my side, probably something more personal, and I mentioned that briefly before, Inna, is that I think formal education helps. And even though you are an engineer and you're probably shifting or starting to work on L&D, I think it helped me a lot to, I mentioned neuroscience, I mentioned some of the concepts that I think we know about frameworks like ADDIE. If you are not aware of those, I mean, you can do something for sure, but when you start learning, I think you realize how you can really improve in a structured way how you deliver learning. So I think being aware of that, and in my case was formal education, but as we know in the internet or in many places you can find really good trainings. I think being aware that improving your formal knowledge about how L&D works is probably a good addition to your tool set. So that would be probably my two advices.
Yeah, I would say just be a proponent of continuous learning, right? Be that lifelong learner, because you need to be a role model for others in that sense. And you only get better, right? They say knowledge is power, but just continuing learning, not only about just learning and development, topics and concepts, but even about business, about your industry, right? So you can be.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds great. And it feels quite universal, not just to technical, but if you transition from technical background into L&D, but in general, L&D is such a field where you can grow out of many fields, and you can become an L&D specialist out of sales, if you're into sales enablement, for instance, from HR mostly. However, that's not the case right now. There are more and more emerging professions, and they need to educate those professions within the companies, right? So hence my next question. We are coming to the main agenda of our podcast. And I'd like to start from a question that only a person who is not connected to technical background at all, such as me, can ask. So do you believe that L&D professional without a technical background can fit to do the job of yours, for instance?
I would say there is an important part that we have always seen in our team, that is hiring people that have the experience of the job that you are teaching to. I think you have, or you're able to develop that empathy with your learners. So I would say it would be possible, but I think it's just a really important factors or a factor that you are aware of what the engineers are going through. And in our case, really, really busy during their day. So I think just having been there, it's something that really helps you to be aware of, for example, how important is micro-learning for an engineer. Or I think that is probably what helped. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? For a lot of us, like you even mentioned sales, a lot of us, we come from that position. So it makes us really good, especially the empathy part. I would say it's very important to immerse yourself and embed yourself. So I'm going to say if technical support, maybe you should go take some cases.
Yes.
Right? Work with some customers, see what it feels like, especially the pressure of different types of jobs. So then you know that maybe small bite-sized learning is a lot better for them to consume, or learning in the flow of work.
Yep.
I would say job shadowing, very important, right? Spend some time job shadowing, even the informational interviews with those people that are in that position. Really get to know your audience. But I'll always say it's a little scary, but even trying it out, trying the job for a little bit, and rotating into it to give it a shot. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think one good way for us to think about it is normally, as we were explaining, we have grown a lot during the last year. So we started with around 2-3 technologies, and now we cover more than 10. And I think always that, and as I said, I'm normally a guy that likes to go for the new stuff. So normally when we are just having those type of initial challenges of, we have just a new technology that I have not been working with that technology, I think we both, or in our team, we like a lot to talk to them and to really understand how is, for example, the difference compared to other teams that we are more aware of. Like, I think all that analysis work that takes, sadly, a lot of time. Sometimes I think being aware and really learn how that job is compared to other stuff that we are aware of. So what we are trying to say here is that I think it's really important to somehow know the other side. It's not just about trying, but I think it's also about being interested and learning about what the team or what working there feels like. So we consider that I would say a big advantage.
Yeah, I think building credibility, and if you just start it with the first, like how we grew from a couple of technologies to many of them I've never taken a case on, right? But you build that credibility, and as you'll get to the part of nurturing an ecosystem of subject matter experts, they really help you drive that content, right? And so you stand there as the consultant, but you do want to build a level of credibility with that team in order to gain that type of support.
Agree.
That sounds extremely interesting. And also coming, just to give you a bit of background, once I was called to a company on a very brief time. However, they faced the issue that their SMEs, so I needed as an L&D specialist to fix the learning within the technical team, because most of their learning consisted of like hour-long videos with a lot of yeah, and a lot of explanation just wasn't applicable to what they are trying to explain, so it was a bit of a mess. So my question is, you talk a lot about SMEs and building this culture of onboarding SMEs and getting them on your side of learning journey, right? How do you do that? So if I know that you've got your own ecosystem of working with SMEs, so could you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, probably. And we started this with just one technology. So again, we were coming from mostly live delivery, and then we started to think like, how do we scale as well the amount of topics that we are covering just with this small team? Like we didn't grow as a team, but we really grow in the amount of topics that we were covering or in the amount of technologies. And I think probably the first one that we have learned during this time is that best SMEs are not necessarily the most technical ones, because I think normally when you ask let's say a leader or a manager in a as we said, like in a new technology that we will build training for, they tend to tell you about the people that are most technical or that they excel at their work, and that is, as we probably know as well, Inna, not everyone is even interested to get their hands dirty into L&D or to create training. And I think that almost that inner motivation to really help with this type of initiative. I think is what we have seen. It's more effective when selecting the people that work around you. Yeah, as we said, it's probably the tendency to find that once we imagine that a manager is telling us a couple of SMEs, and then we go and we start to work on the initiative. We normally find that the motivation and really for them to be interested into helping with this stuff, I think that is the key part of selecting a great SMEs, and it's in the end what we have been trying to do after we discovered that was really important for us. So any other thoughts from your
I
side?
mean, and it's great, like, what you said about those SMEs that made hour-long videos, right? But so find the natural helpers, right? So those are what I consider natural helpers. They're ones that they want to go make content and help them refine that process.
Yeah.
Right. Now, and then also think about what level of involvement they want, right? We have subject matter experts that will go into Rise 360 and build eLearn. They will build it.
Yep.
Like that's what they want to do versus others say, hey, I want to give you a video. And then we say, please, not an hour-long video, like a 5 or 10 minute video. And then what we do is we take their video, clean it up, and wrap it into a learner experience.
Yeah.
And then they see the final product and say, well, I like that. I want to do this again. And so you get them excited, right, to be part of the process. But you definitely have to find, like Miguel said, not the most technical are going to be the best, but if you find those natural helpers that have a lot of knowledge and have a willingness to help out and help others, and they seem to usually become the best fit for your ecosystem.
Yeah, and probably after that, Inna, because that is more about how we think you should bring people next to you or to this SME ecosystem. But I think there is another factor that is really important, that is more the community that you build. Because once you start building this kind of team around a specific technology, for example, of people that are just helping you, in our case, it's mostly engineers and technical leaders, I think, and we have achieved that, I think, in a couple or 3 spaces now, and we're trying to replicate that into other spaces, is that once you create that community build, I think you already have people from that community bring others. So I think that is how you start, in a way, scaling the initiative naturally. So you don't even need to be anymore the person being there, just pushing or trying to expand the initiatives, but it's more people coming to you and telling you, I have this friend that is working with you, so I think I could also help. So I think this type of natural developments of communities around SME are also important, and something we have seen that works pretty well for our teams. And probably the other part is, together with the community, is also rewards. I think we have also some experience providing not only, the opportunity to learn with us and to develop content, but I think it's also, as we said, this connection with business before, also to provide the opportunity for them to have visibility and to provide rewards once we have some achievement, or once we develop a training that have helped many other engineers. So I think rewards is also a big piece of this kind of community part.
Yeah, you want to hit both the intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, right? So monetary rewards are great. The congratulations with the VP on the email chain saying, oh, this content's great. But then also that feeling of accomplishment, right? Internally, that makes you feel good and gives you the drive to continue helping out and to even, become someone that can start presenting very well, right? Alongside your day job.
Yeah.
Sounds extremely interesting, and it actually leads me, I just remembered an example from Microsoft. What they do, they've created a community of knowledge sharing space where everyone who has something to share, they are free to share it on the lectures. And what they do, that at the end of the year, they write a personalized email from VP, tagging each and CC in each superior manager of the speaker, and it adds such a nice personal touch that not necessary monetary benefits, but this awareness that you are sharing the knowledge and you are expanding continuous learning culture within your organization. That sounds really great. During our initial conversation, we mentioned the working with cross-functional teams. So could you elaborate on that? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, besides just working with them in general, right? You're doing kind of your needs assessment for the different teams, understanding, and then what we like to do is do persona-based modular content, right? So keeping your content small, keeping it modular, because you want to make sure, again, leading to a scalable training team, you need to be able to reuse for things, but you also need to be able to personalize. So as an example, I mean, modular content, maybe everyone needs to know the foundations of the product solution, right? So, okay, so I have that goes in each learning path. But then you want to build what I call personas and just different audience types. because you are not going to teach a developer the same way as you'll teach a salesperson, as the same way you would teach a customer success person, right? So it all has to be a little bit different like that. And I would say also, just for cross-functional, it's really building that talent agility type framework, right? Where you can have an efficient and a very quick moving workforce to where you can cross skill, right? You can upskill and you can reskill. But I would say, and lastly, is try to use a learning technology platform that allows you the concept of linking. So if I have 15 paths, right, and maybe these are not just technical training paths in different levels, maybe. So we have the very novice level versus a highly experienced advanced level.
Yeah.
Linking is going to allow you to say reuse content in certain spots, update it in one place, and allow it automatically, update in all of the different pathways, because training teams are small, right? We're small, and you have to do a lot. You're always asked for much more than what is humanly possible.
Oh, definitely.
So you need to leverage that type of technology
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Yeah, and related to what Eric was mentioning about talent agility, I think at some point as well we started adding what we call cross-tech initiatives. That means that we have both the technology-specific initiative that is just meant for a group of engineers or for an organization, but then we have other type of trainings that are just shared trainings, right? That probably from many other technologies you can take the same training and probably just the base of networking on the base on a specific technology. So I think cross-technology type of trainings in our technical space are something that we have seen the need at some point to spend some time there and to really start developing those initiatives. And I think the other part that I think at some point found is that having, in our case, we are a support organization, so our engineers are taking cases based on keywords. I think this will be probably different for every type of technical team that you have. But in our case, having a keyword-based training, so basically structuring the training in a way that you could almost, as Eric said, like build this type of more like basic keywords are like you have these trainings for those, then you have these more advanced keywords. So it's about that modularity that Eric was mentioning and adapting that modularity to how the business works. So how are they taking cases or how are they working? And I think going or for your learning experience to be closer to that structure, I think that helps you to even later provide better metrics, right? Because if we're able to provide a keyword-based metric consumption for the business, they will be aware of what we're talking about. So I think sharing that language and sharing those structures with the business, I think that also help us a lot in our way.
Yeah, and it brings different audience types. Like we've had account managers that said, "Hey, I really like this intro level training,"
Yeah.
right? And then you have the engineers that are bored with that. They're like, "I want the advanced level training." So balancing the depth and breadth of knowledge, right? It starts with understanding the needs and knowing these are adult learners. So it needs to be relevant. It needs to be timely. It needs to apply right now for what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think related to, I don't know if it's fitting exactly with the question, Inna, but I think it does. It's mostly for cross-functional training, but I think AI, one thing that we're discovering we could do with it is about the personalization part of the learning experience. And I think before it was really difficult for us to do personalization apart from just having maybe those like advanced or different type of paths for you. But I think now we wanted to call out a tool that is called Notebook LM. We are using that. Probably you're aware of it. I don't know.
It's all around LinkedIn, I think.
Everywhere. So. It's everywhere now. So what we thought we could do with it, and maybe this is again useful for any other L&D professional out there, is that we have seen the opportunity and we are doing that with this new applied AI training that we're working on. And what we're trying to do is basically as you go through the training, you are basically completing different sections, right? So what we imagine it could be cool is that as you are ending every section, we could give you almost the content that was there. So what we are allowing you to do is basically to personalize or to build your own notebook of the learning experience. And you basically would take the PDF we are providing, then you upload it to Notebook LM, and then you keep building that learning as you go. And you almost have that, we define it as a learning companion, almost, that you are building that type of tool that is next to you during the learning, and as you are adding PDFs or you are adding any other resource that you find could be interesting for the learning that you are doing in that case. In our case, it's AI, but it could be, of course, applied to any other topic. And I think that is, bringing the learning experience in a way to the next level, because it's not just allowing you to personalize the learning experience itself, but it's allowing you to keep something out later. So it's almost like if you want to learn something more about AI in the, 1 month from now, you will still have that reference in your notebook, and then keep probably adding some stuff or just probably have a better learning in the future. So yeah, I think that is something probably we discovered as well that AI is allowing us to do, and we thought it's pretty cool.
Yeah, suffice to say, we've moved on from just prompt engineering, right,
Uh,
into much other different ways to leverage and utilize AI.
Definitely.
Yeah, I wanted to ask my next question would be how do you personalize technical training? But I think you kind of answered that. But in any case, I just have to mention that everything what you are talking right now sends me back to one of the first thoughts that Eric mentioned in the beginning. One size fits all. We are totally against of it right now, and L&D in general has moved so far from what it was like a couple of years ago, and partly thanks to AI that that's bringing us to the next topic. So what I'm curious about is firstly, how do you stay ahead of the curve by preparing teams for AI? And secondly, so you are more currently within the L&D field. How do you stay ahead yourself? So that's an interesting topic to be, to keep the balance.
Yeah, I can start with this one. So, at least let's start with the L&D part, Ina, because I think even what I shared at the beginning, being in some of the newsletters, being probably in LinkedIn, being following some of the people that we have as a reference, but probably it's the way I'm keeping up with everything that is going on. And now AI is also a big part of what is going on in L&D as well. And for particularly our team, how do we handle that? We could say future technologies because right now it's AI, but probably in the future will be a different thing. It could be blockchain, it could be anything like quantum. In our company, there is a lot of cryptography or cybersecurity related quantum technology, new developments. So again, I think AI just has been actually the training we are developing. It's related to the history of AI, and I think not many people know. I mean, it's just a new thing and everyone is learning about it, but I think it's something that has been in the oven for many years, from the 50s if I recall correctly. So I think just being aware of how we have done it this time and then preparing for the next wave, because I think there is a Gartner curve as well that is telling you about the technologies in L&D that are like more mature, the ones that are more at the beginning. So I think the process that I wanted to talk about, it's more about being aware what is out there, because I think if you just have and we mentioned this as different inputs, right? Because I think we have our internal input from our organizations and the developments that are going on internally in our company. But I think it's really important to also know just what is happening outside. And I think we do that through, you can mention some, maybe through blogs. Eric and I, we're constantly sharing like pages in the internet or some, I don't know, whatever resource we find out there that could be interesting. And I think that is a part that we also see missing many times of some of the learning experience that we visit, is that spending quite a lot of time in the analysis phase, like making sure that based on everything that is going on outside, as we said, what you are developing fit also with the needs of the audience that you are developing for. In our case, is AI for more engineers or support engineers. And then the last one is, after you again know what is happening, what is making sense for you, you spend some time analysis, like identifying what is the actual fit for your particular audience. Then only after you have really clear learning objectives and the big goal, then you can start executing. But I think that is a part that we probably would advise to be careful with. It's just don't start executing until you have a clear strategy or clear goals for your learning experiences. And particularly for new technologies, it's really important to stop and think, okay, like based on, again, all the developments, all the new stuff that is coming out, what is the particular piece that will probably even be staying? Because I think always with technologies, what happens is that you have a part of it that is more like the portion that will change pretty fast, but you have a part of the technology that will be that core side of it. So I think focusing on the core and again on your particular audience, probably that is the process more or less that we identified it's working for us when it comes to new stuff. Any other thoughts?
I have the caveat of don't wait too long to execute though as well, because if you stay in the planning for too long, things move quickly. I'll talk a little bit just maybe about understanding what's happening outside in terms of the learning and development industry. So I had a very great colleague of mine that she acted as a kind of a team culture ambassador for our training team. And what we would do is when we'd have a small roundtable every week during our team meeting, and we would find some type of article that's about the L&D industry, either the current state, maybe a topic, a concept, something like that. And we'd all we'd spend a couple of minutes together as if we're, all virtual, but we're in a room, and we'd read it. And then we'd come around and we'd take about 2 to 3 minutes each to just discuss what are our thoughts? How do we apply this today? Because we tend to sometimes get that tunnel vision where we're like, here's my job. This is what I do. I'm closed out to everything around me. And so you have to, again, just constantly look at the different materials that are out there. And it was a great way for us to sit down and come up with a lot of new ideas.
Definitely.
That's how ideas came out. We were like, oh, what's this, rapid content delivery? Okay, how do we become scalable? This is a funny one. We have done an article before on becoming scalable technical training teams, right? How to make modular content. So doing that, I think, especially within your team, right? And then also distilling out those type of concepts to like your subject matter experts. And this is why we'll do it this way.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a lot of it's just being a continuous learner and making sure you're giving time to really see what's happening in the industry.
Yeah, and something else that is coming to mind, Inna, is that normally once we do that type of analysis, it's also important to know what other trainings are out there in your company, because many times when we're working on a new technology, for example, and our company is particularly very big, so just being aware of other training teams or learning teams and what they are working on or what they have worked on, like maybe some trainings that are already GA, I think that allows you to do what we call gap analysis. So it could be that they have completed another training that is internal and it was really good, but that is not covering exactly everything that we had in mind for a new initiative that we are planning to develop now. So I think that gap analysis is probably, I don't know, just something else that was coming to mind, not only being aware of again, internally what is going on more industry side and then externally, but then also being aware of other initiatives that are coming from other learning teams that I think in some way, that is always a challenge to be aware of also what other teams are working on and do all that sharing and make sure that we are all not duplicating work. I think in the end, it's all about that.
Probably like a great way is just listening to more episodes of this podcast to see what other learning and development professionals are doing out there, right?
That helps, yes.
Can't agree more, but can I just say that the way you and Cisco in particular operates learning and approaches the development is just something on the next level, and I think that's what something every L&D specialist around there should listen to. So that wraps up this episode of EdTalks podcast. A huge thank you to our guests Eric McArdle and Miguel Ángel Sánchez Moreno for sharing their expertise and inspiring us to rethink technical training and enablement. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to follow EdTalks for more conversations that drive innovation and learning and development. Until the next time, bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Inna.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.